Ladies and gentlemen, I should turn my mic off mute before I start talking. That's the first rule of thumb in audio production, right?
Well done. We're off to a good start.
We're off to a great start. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Matt. Lovely to see you
Lovely
on
to
this
see you.
fine, chilly Monday night.
I know. You know what? The chat has been going wild before we even started.
I was just watching it. There's a lot of activity, which is fantastic. It's
is
almost like the audience has sort of been getting the banter going before we join them.
It's Betty's birthday. Betty Petrie, a regular of our live streams. Hello, Betty. Happy birthday. Shout out happy birthday onto our friends over at YouTube and Facebook, wherever you're watching. So big happy birthday to Betty.
Absolutely.
So many comments. I'm not going to go through them all. Sorry, we don't have that kind of time up our sleeves, but we do have time for some mad bants, AD and MB in the house. And we're going to talk a bit of nonsense, have a bit of fun. I would love to see in the comments what everyone got for their tin of beer. I got a chocolate and banana stout from Pirate Life. So for those wondering, we did different tins for every pack almost.
Lord Nelson's 3 sheets for me, and for Sydney viewers who've been to Lord Nelson, that's a fantastic pub and a fantastic beer.
I'm a huge fan of their dark ale. That's a great.
Oh, their dark ale is beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
Here it comes.
Are we cracking early? Is it straight in?
Yeah, let's crack open the tin.
Oh, what a sound!
It's like banana smoothie in a can. That one. That's great. A few other people got Pirate Life chocolate banana stout. Good to hear. Hashtag where's Bailey? I'm right here, mate. Dov, good to see you. Hi, AD and Matt. Good to see you, Corbin. So many people jumping in, which is great. I got 4 Pines Pale Ale, which I'm extremely happy with, says Dave. So much going on. Cool. Well, we're here to drink some whiskey, and it's about pairing your beer with your drams. And the fun thing is, in the past when we've done Boilermaker virtuals like this, is that everyone's had the same can. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of fun. But at the same time, what if you were to create your own flavor matching? And I would love to see, as the night goes on, both in the Facebook group or on in YouTube or wherever you want to tag us on Instagram. I mean, it's one of those things where if you post, I'd love to hear which whiskey went with which beer best, and post more of your Boilermaker photos, which ties in nicely with, of course, our giveaways for July in terms of Boilermaker photos. So it is Malt Magic month in the outturn this month. And what did we say? That's right. Yeah, win one of 5 bottles of Barber here, the Whiskey Barber. Just posting photos of your favorite beer and whiskey pairing using a Society whiskey. Look at that. Winning. Okay. Oh, Andrew, did you just flip?
I did because I just realized I held up my my beer to the camera before, and because I wasn't flipped, it was back to front. And yours is back to front at the moment too. So I thought if I mirror things, then people don't have to read back to front.
So if I do it live like this, ready? If I go like this and then go, ooh.
Oh, well, there you go.
Now we've got the correct beer. Okay, we'll do it that way.
I'm now dizzy, but that's okay.
Yeah, my hands are the other hands now.
Yeah, I know. We've got to get used to
that. Virtual tasting half and half. Beer and a dram. And I think we're going to start with Marmalade Overdrive. So if you have your packs ready to go, folks. Now, there were some people asking questions about this very whiskey, even who aren't in the virtual. But there's some cool stories behind it. But we might pour that into the glass now. I've just got to find mine. I'm very organized tonight. I've already got them all unwrapped, as you can see.
I'll tell you what, John Hitchens just shared that he got the Stone and Wood Hinterland Hazy Pale Ale. That is a cracking beer.
That is a great beer.
All right. So we're getting sucked straight into marmalade. Is that the...
Yeah, let's get into it. Of course, it's going to be the last one I unwrap, won't it? That's Murphy's Law. That's how it goes. What will happen can happen. Where's my Marmalade Overdrive? There we go. Okay. Let's crack open this. Good to see you, Mark Teague. Hope you're well. John Hitchens, Stone and Wood Hinterland Hazy. Great beer. I'm a huge fan of Stone and Wood. Great, they do great beers.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So as you say, this will be interesting. Everyone's going to have obviously their impression of the whiskey is going to be very much influenced by the beer that's in your hand.
Indeed.
I've got a particularly fruity pale ale here. You've got banana in your beer, so
wish me luck. Yeah, wish me luck. To answer your question, Dov, no, AD has not seen the new goblet. It is in the office here somewhere. I would have to find it, and I don't want to disrupt the stream, but I will show him shortly. There's some Mark Teague's mentioning some great deals happening at the going on elsewhere. So let's Marmalade Overdrive. Here we go. So let's just examine what this is. This is one of our heresy, our experimental projects. And this is one that good old Team SMWS Australia had a hand in building, which is very exciting to see actually come to fruition. So if you rewind to 2018, or maybe it's late 17, somewhere around there, we got an email from our spirits team in the UK saying, we're trying to source some Australian Shiraz casks. Can you help us? And we sent them, I think, in the end, it was about 80 casks. So a fair bit of wood came from a company in South Australia that sent over all these casks. And now, fast forward 6 extra years, and this 14-year-old whiskey has had an extra maturation utilizing some of those casks. Now, not all of them, but some of those casks have been used to mature this whiskey. So it's still Scotch whiskey, but it's Scotch whiskey utilizing ex-Australian wine casks, which is great. It's a cool sort of local story that we're now able to then open this up. It's bottled at 50% ABV. It's a little bit older than most of the heresy we've seen.
I was about to say, we haven't had too many heresies at 14 years old.
No. We've had a bunch of 8 and 10 and even a couple of 12. But seeing a little bit older heresy stock coming through is great to see.
Does the guitarists watching will appreciate this? Has comments been made about the actual label? It's the absolute. They've done a beautiful job of mimicking the old Boss guitar overdrive pedal with input and output, and then up the top. I think full marks. That is as a guitarist. That's, I have to say, well played.
It looks great, doesn't it? With the flavor and the depth knobs up the top and the input output. The right color as well.
The Australian Shiraz casks were sourced in 2017. So their contribution to this is a finish or an extra maturation. Yeah.
That's right, Dave. About 80. It was about 80 from memory. And it was they will be used in a variety of different purposes over there. So this project was, I can't remember how many bottles it yielded. There's a bottle somewhere, but it was like maybe 1,500 bottles worldwide. So that's used a good chunk of those casks, and then there would be other projects that they're using now and in the future for those as well.
There was another Society bottling that had the Australian
had Australian wine cask finish or something.
The red Shiraz, yeah. Which was that actually? I think it
was one of our 77s. It was like 76s or something, like not a 76, 78. I meant to say. Sorry, I think it was like a one of Ben Nevis cask. I think it was a Ben Nevis cask that had Australian cask, right. Australian wine influence. But a good one to start with because it's fruity. I do actually pick up a bit of sort of marmalade toast, which sounds. See, there you go, Dave. 2,658. Yeah, so that's a lot. I mean, so if you divide that by, let's say each cask yielded maybe 170 liters, then you're looking at that's 15 casks straight off the bat. So,
I remember it was about 2013, 2014, and certainly amongst the Sydney-based whiskey community, and one of the Facebook groups that was quite active at that time, something Boilermakers became the thing. And I think it was about the time that the Clock Hotel in Surrey Hills had that, quite vibrant whiskey bar that was going for a bit, and everyone was heading there for Boilermakers. I remember some poor chap chimed in online on the Facebook group and said, I've tried this Boilermaker and I mixed my Ardbeg with this Tui's and it was a shocker. And we found out after probing what he'd actually done was just, poured his whiskey into the beer and rather than chaser, he just mixed the two, and yeah, surprise, that didn't quite work. So.
Yeah. Well, what do you know? Oh dear. Yeah. That's what do they call it? I think if you drop a shot of whiskey into a pint of beer, it's called a depth charge.
Depth charge, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not really that's not really my thing, but yeah. What do you think of what else do we think of Marmalade Overdrive? We haven't talked.
Well, look, I think it's aptly named. The citrus comes up in the nose and on the palate, but like marmalade, it's a tart citrus, not necessarily a sweet citrus.
Yeah.
Well, look, at 50%, it is really drinkable. I'd almost suggest it's too drinkable. I'd like to try this at a slightly higher ABV.
Yeah.
Kind of, you knock that back just too easily. But it's going very well with my pale ale, by the way, which is my beer weighs in at 4.9%.
6.0 on the stout.
Okay,
but
that's a real stout then.
yeah. It does actually taste like a whole banana in that tin.
Yeah, wow.
All right. So great comments coming through. Corbin says, "I feel my beer is a bit too big for this first whiskey." Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if any of you got like a sort of a lighter sort of lager or pale, then this might match.
What was your beer, Corbin?
Yeah, which beer did you get? It might go well with 16.76. That's coming up as well. That is, of course, coming up. Just a quick announcement, of course, before we really kick off into the rest of the drams. All of the casks that we're testing tonight are available on the website. Now, 3 of them are not yet released, but we've put a very small number up on the site because they're pre-releases. And if anyone's so inclined, you can also get. We're doing free shipping tonight, so throw that on there as well, and you get free ship 24 is the code. That's FREESHIP 24.
Don't say that quickly in a Scottish accent.
No. Yeah. Close enough.
Can you pop David's comment up on the screen, Mr. Gilks? I think
here we go. So I always love your comments, David. You've always got such great tasting notes. Don't usually love a red wine cask finish, but this is quite tasty. Mulling spices and the marmalade shows too. The creamy rice pudding note balances out nicely. Very, very drinkable. Yeah.
I think I actually kind of concur with that comment there. There's not too many red wine cask finish that work well. Certainly here in Australia, a lot of the Australian distilleries obviously have done it, except they're not finishes; they're full-term maturations. I know the crowd at Springbank have done both Longrow and Springbank in red wine casks to mixed effect. So it's not everyone's cup of tea.
Wasn't one of those Longrows even labelled as Australian Shiraz casks? Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. So it's not unusual. It's happened before. But to your point, I always find most red wine cask whiskies often they're just overkill. There's just too. Whereas this one I find there is just a nice level of balance going on in that.
Well, like any cask and red wine casks in particular, you got to balance the tannins. And a lot of red wine casks will be dripping in that, and you got to keep that under control.
Yeah.
Australian whiskies, I'm talking to you.
Dov, don't worry. We'll apply the credit to your account. Not a stress at all, mate. But it won't be able to process it on that order, but we'll apply it to your account afterwards. So just use the words free ship 24 for free shipping tonight on any orders, and of course you can grab any of the July virtual casks that we're tasting, including the pre-release ones, just here, which is great.
The finish on this is just becoming more and more like Fanta.
Fanta.
There's that. I don't know if it's psychosomatic or whatever, just seeing the marmalade and the orange, but I finished this and I just feel like I've had a glug of Fanta, and maybe that's also, that fizziness on the mouth is from the beer as well. So maybe my mouth is taking the citrus from the whiskey and the carbonated bubbles from the beer, and mentally my brain is combining those two and going, "Hey, you're drinking Fanta right now."
Yeah, fizzy orange.
Wow.
Just get a shout out for how good Fanta is. It's underrated soft drink.
Was that? Sorry, I have to do this. That was just too easy. So you're saying let's have a shout out for how good Fanta is.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, everyone throw your hands up in the air for Fanta. Maybe it's also label. I wonder how much of that plays into our perceptions with whiskey sometimes. The colours of labels and things.
Oh, look, you taste with your eyes.
Yeah.
We've had, there's been megabytes, terabytes written about how we all reach for the darker whiskey when they're presented to you, because your eyes just go
Corbin says Pasito is better. Ooh. What about Passiona? Passiona is also very good.
Oh, them's fighting words.
Are you a Kirk's person or are you a Schweppes person? Those kind of discussions. Kirk's all the way. Kirk's all the way.
Wasn't that was a big Victorian, New South Wales thing? Wasn't it? Kirk's versus Sellies?
It probably was. Yeah, Sellies, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no sugar Fanta's good. Yes. And no sugar Sprite's also good.
I like the no sugar.
We just call that air, Andrew. We call it air.
Wasn't it a song by the Archies?
No sugar.
I'm going too far now.
Yeah, you're going way too far back from me. Sorry.
That's the whiskey telling me to move on to the next one.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go whiskey number 2. All right, on our menus tonight, we are following menu order on our half and half. So that means we're up to Lusciously Lively. 80.40, 80.40. Here we go.
It's a pale whiskey for 10 years old, isn't it?
It very much is.
Particularly for a first fill.
Yeah. It's very pale in colour.
I don't pay much attention to colour with society whiskey because the
green glass,
the first fill bourbon, but
yeah, and also with green glass bottles you don't really see it.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, I like that.
Hello.
I like that nose. That's fantastic. Now, I would call this whiskey absolutely underrated in terms of distillery profile and style of whiskey. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
not a sexy distillery.
No, not at all. In fact, what's interesting, if you go through the town of Rothes, you actually go past, as you're heading north, you go past the Glenrothes distillery, and this is right next door. And you can't get in. There's always had that big gate. And so every whiskey enthusiast stands at the gate and takes the shot. And there you go. That's exactly the one.
there's the shot.
I'll move here. You can see I've taken the same shot.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I took that in 2014, I think. So everyone just stands and takes that same shot, and that's about all you can capture. But it is underrated. Obviously, it's renowned for going into the J&B blends, and always has. It's one of the unsung Diageo distilleries that just contributes straight to those blends.
How much does the nose on that just sing though?
Oh,
drizzled honey and
not just sing but shine.
That just bounces around the glass. Sweet,
tutti fruity, wine gums, a little bit of sherbet.
There's a note that I get in all of the 80s that we see through, which is obviously .40 is less than 1 per year on average, but I always get like a maple note. And there was an 80 we had a couple of years ago. It's like 80.32 or something was the code, and it was called Maple Mountain Spring. And this reminds me of that whiskey. There's always this maple note to their spirit somehow. Like maple syrup and on pancakes kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I can get that. You're absolutely right. I know this is Boilermaker night, but this is really good. I'm not sure I want to reach for the beer just yet. I think this whiskey's got a lot more to give me.
I think if anyone here has, again, a much sort of maybe a lighter, brighter sort of ale or lager in their pack, this might be the trick.
Oh, Dave's put fruit tingles. That's the word I was looking for earlier.
Yeah, that's the one. There we go. I'm going to throw that up.
I was picturing in my head. But
Corbin says,
it's such an underrated distillery. It's been around a while. It was founded in 1878. Like all of those 19th century distilleries in the 60s and 70s, it got a big overhaul. I think in 1970 they doubled its size. It became part of the IDV group and then UDV, and then eventually Diageo, from memory in the 90s or something, and just churns away. But not many people know about it. You don't see a commercially available bottling. Doesn't have an OB, so to speak.
No.
I've actually got, and I'm going to get out of the way here because I'm talking.
Yep. Okay. I'll make you. Here we go. Let's have a look.
That is the distillery there.
Fantastic.
Wonderful. So I've got a big overhaul in 1970 when they increased the number of stills from 2 to 4. And you can just see that real beautiful classic 1970s Scottish architecture, which is always a work of art.
Did you climb up a chimney for this one, for this photo.
No, I'll be honest and say I sourced that from a colleague who sent a drone up there.
And I know exactly who that is.
Right, okay.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. And they've done some videos of they've done some flyovers of some distilleries. I think he's done maybe a dozen or so.
It's a game changer, you know. You know, when all the distilleries I've been to, you know, you stand in the car park, you stand out in the front and take a shot, and that's it. And these guys that can now send the drones up, and you actually get, you know, those aerial shots. It's just so much better.
It plays into that sort of absurdity sometimes, isn't it? You can't walk in the front gate and take a photo with an iPhone, but you can send a drone over the top.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Health and safety. All
right, well, this is an amazing whiskey. I'm about to see how the beer goes as the chaser.
I'm gonna try Corbin's suggestion. I've got that beer, so.
Oh wow. That really brings out the hops on this pale ale tremendously. If anyone else has got the Lord Nelson 3 sheets, chime in with your thoughts. But for me, that's what I'm experiencing. Just suddenly became a lot hoppier, which is that classic thing, isn't it? The old, you know, if it's a really good pairing, then the whiskey changes to the beer, and the beer changes to the whiskey.
I'll say this: 80s give absolutely amazing bang for buck. Yeah, they absolutely do. And as to Andrew's point as well before about this is not a distillery which have a core range. It is an absolute underdog of a workhorse distillery, and you just don't see it as a single malt, let alone a single cask single malt. And I think it's just. But also, I do actually think members often overlook Young and Sprightly because they think I'm not getting as much bang for buck with my whiskey because it's not as, you know, full bodied or anything. You taste that and you go, no way.
It's so true, isn't it? How often does Young and Sprightly get overlooked?
You get left behind at outturns all the time.
And you overlook it at your peril. There's some amazing whiskies in that flavour profile.
169 for this is a steal. Yeah, I agree. It's a 10-year-old cask strength single cask whiskey for 169 is a banger. And of course, even better if you get it tonight because oh, I'm wrong. I flipped over again. Hold on, there we go. It's down there somewhere. I got to flip myself back. I think this is driving me mental. There we go. So just use free ship on those any orders tonight. If anyone has any troubles with that, just let me know. It's just I can't get over that nose, that maple. Now I might have to get a bottle of this myself, just as a good drama.
Really interesting too that it's a first fill bourbon hogshead. So this would be one of the few companies going around that's still actually bothering to break the barrels into hogsheads. You know, there's so few people doing that now. They just bring the barrels across and leave them there.
Which, to your point, it's like you see things like hogsheads in stuff like 20 to 25-year-old whiskey because it's like, yeah, they're still using them back then. But now, like, 10-year-old in the hoggy.
With increased labor costs, the labor and the cost of actually, you know, enlarging a barrel and turning it into to get that extra 50 liters, they've decided that economically that's not the right way to go for so many of the distilleries.
This is mainlining butterscotch, maple butter, citrus meringue pie. Combination of syrupy sweet and citric brightness is really nice. Great stuff. Yeah. Your notes are bang on, David. That's great. I don't think I'm outing you, David, when I say that it's you. From memory, you're a professional beer judge as well. So I think this tasting is going to be right up your alley. Brings out more roasted malts in the stout. Yeah, that's true. I had a sip of my stout. That's very true. Agree, AD. I also have the 4 Pints Hazy Ale, and it sends the hops bonkers. Yeah, isn't that just amazing? Like just those kind of pairings where it changes where you think the beer will complement the whiskey, but the whiskey actually changes the beer. I love those kind of things. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the discussion in itself. If you're going to do a half and half, which do you have first? Yeah,
well, which one do you sip first? I usually do beer then whiskey. I usually do sort of beer whiskey. I don't know. I just find that's it's supposed to be around the other way, isn't it? You know, shot and chaser sort of approach, but that's okay. I also hold my fork with my right hand, so you know, sue me.
just no accounting for some people. God.
Can't take me anywhere.
Wow.
That's lovely. I'm gonna park that for a bit. I've
I'm
got a
going
row
to
of
do the
glasses.
same.
Yeah, I want to see how that. Actually, really keen to see how that goes after maybe another half hour in the glass. That's one of those whiskies that might really change. I know I usually say it about sherried whiskies, but speaking of which, sherried whiskey. Da 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 da. Yeah, 35.326 is next in our lineup tonight. A distillery that both AD and I and society members at large are well familiar with. Andrew, do you want to be maximised for a moment?
Me or my background?
Just get really close to the camera for a second, mate. We'll blow you up. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful photo. Nice clear day.
Yeah, not photoshopped. It was a sunny day that year. I happened to be at the distillery that day.
That day of that year that it happened. Yeah. In fact, some of our best photos from that members would have seen many times of Ewan and the team exploring the distillery and spending a bit of time at the 35.
Just sorry, Matt, would you mind backing up one step? So the gentleman on the left there is Ian Allen, who was actually just out here in Australia 2 months ago, in fact, doing a bunch of tastings in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. He's the international brand ambassador for Glen Murray. Lovely guy.
Yeah. And fantastic distillery. And the stills are all in sort of, because of, buildings being built often centuries before, the stills are all in sort of different rooms entirely. So stills 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6 are all in sort of almost, 10-minute walk apart from each other in some cases.
That's a story in itself, isn't it? I mean, the distillery's had a fascinating history, founded back in 1897, I think.
Or before that as a brewery.
Well, indeed, yeah. And then it became part of Glenmorangie in 1920, passed to the French company that currently owned it in 2008, and haven't they invested in it? My goodness, what they've done in terms of expanding its capacity, its number of stills, its washback. So as you say, to your point, you've got the original Victorian buildings, and then you've got to walk out, go around the corner, head to the back to get to all the other areas that have now been expanded under the new owners, and they've done a fantastic job. I think I know the answer to this question, but have you had the pleasure of trying their peated whiskies and their peated new make?
Whiskies, yes. New make, no.
Oh, amazing stuff. They are on point.
No, I've toured the distillery twice, and it's such an experience in there because it's basically just like that. In fact, that very photo where Ewan is right now. In that room, you can see some sort of wooden plinths along the wall behind him, or ahead of him, I should say. And that particular warehouse is just basically like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory of strange casks and weird French this and weird Italian this, and I think it's a hugely underrated distillery. I've said that so many times. If you're a fan of distilleries like actually, no, I won't say that. That's a stretch too far. David Gilk says, interesting thing about the beer pairing here is that the whiskies so far haven't helped the Stone and Wood hinterland. Feels like the alcohol bring out some phenolic character rather than the hops. Interesting. Now this nose is bonkers. Now I should have mentioned, by the way, this whiskey, Distillery 35326, All the Dark Things, is actually August Malt of the Month. So if you're in this tasting right now, you are tasting this for the first time. It's a 16-year-old Oloroso Speyside whiskey from Distillery 35, and we're very excited in the deep, rich, and dried fruits profile to have this for Malt of the Month. And of course, unless it's already sold out, I'll do a quick check. We have got it as a preview bottling on the website right now, which you can check out in the links or on the QR code, or just on, if you know where to go, you know where to go.
All the Dark Things. Tell me, is anyone else reading that out loud and in their head they're singing the Blink 182 song? I am.
Now you've made a reference closer to my generation, but it's actually past mine.
My generation? You mean our generation?
Okay, exactly. But I'm not really.
Don't let my hairstyle fool you, folks. Matt and I were born 3 days apart.
In the same hospital, just right next to each other. And Andrew leaned over and said, "Dram." Right, that's it. It was meant to be. Dov's already grabbed a bottle. Good to know. Good to know. But yeah, this one is very much available now on the website before August outturn. So this is a nice preview available tonight. 162 bottles, and we managed to scrape 54 of them out of the cask. So it's had 13 years in an ex-bourbon hoggy before another 3 years and a little bit in an ex-Oloroso Spanish oak.
That's been a really active finish, hasn't it?
Very much so, yeah.
If you gave me this blind and just told me it was had spent its full maturation in sherry, I believe you. For 3 out of 16 years, so as a fraction, now it's just a bit less than a quarter of its time, that Oloroso has really injected its influence.
And I'll also just mention anyone who's interested in learning more about our sherry program that we've been running at the Society. We've just published the documentary on our YouTube channel, of which many of you are watching this video right now. Don't encourage you to jump off this video because then after this you could watch the documentary if you haven't already. It's only 37 minutes and it's and I'd recommend turning the volume up so that you can cut through some of the accents and catch some of the words they're saying, because it is not subtitled. I'm sorry.
Interesting finish on this. It's got the most amazing nose. It's got the most amazing palate, and the finish about 10 seconds in goes quite dry and spicy.
It could almost be spicy and dry profile, even, isn't it?
It could be, yeah.
It's lovely.
Have you had too many drams? That's the wrong way to put that question. Have you had any?
Yes.
Have you had any whiskies from this distillery that had spent their whole life in sherry?
Yeah, I have. Not too many. There was one which was a core range bottling.
I'm about to say the Society's had a few, but from memory they were quite old.
Yeah, we had those. We had that string of like 24, 25-year-old. They weren't sherry though. They were like designer oak casks.
Yeah. Even amongst their core range, you don't actually see too many full maturation, full sherry maturations.
There's probably a good reason for that. It'd probably be bloody awful. It'd probably just be too much, maybe.
Well, I think that's a really good point. Every distillery's got to make their own distillate, and their distillate works with some type of casks and not others. And we shouldn't just assume that they've all got to throw it into sherry because they can. It may not work.
The whiskey just takes too much away to enjoy both. Okay, big dried fruits on the nose. It's supposed to be $249. We're running it as the $229 special on Malt of the Month. I think the menu price here is incorrect. So just check the website for the most up-to-date numbers, which you can see it's just under the half and half link on the categories on the site, which just went up 5 minutes before, not even 3 minutes before we went live. It went live on the site. So $229 is an absolute steal for a 16-year-old sherry whiskey. I'll agree with you on that. David, here's David's call. He's all the things Christmas baking spread, lovely toasty almond note to finish. I agree about the drying finish. Quite good with the hazy, bringing out the fruity texture. It is a bit of a Christmassy whiskey, isn't it? It's like Christmas in July almost for us right now.
I concur with that toasty almond note. Actually, it's biscotti, almond biscotti.
And on the nose, I just get the slightest hint of like spent coffee.
Oh yeah, yep.
Like coffee grounds, just straight out of the puck.
100%.
Not too bad. I usually get that on things like 107s and some other distilleries that show that character a lot more, but that's lovely. I'm going to also park. I've had a few sips of that, but I'm going to park the rest of that one for the moment. And
for what it's worth, I've got my drams off to the side here, and there's been a small. You might have seen me reaching out. There's been a small little mozzie flying around the house, and I keep missing him. And he's decided that he actually likes marmalade. That's when he's decided to drown in. He's just.
So hold on, you're trying to tell me you've got bonus protein going on in your whiskeys here?
I do now. Yeah.
I was kind of just waiting for the real moment. There we go. And one of those mozzies that has already bitten you, and then you smack it, and so you get all your goodies back.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's how I. That's my iron program.
Yeah. Common says, I feel this finish is more tannic than the finish of Marmalade Overdrive. Okay, yeah. I wouldn't say it's a bad tannic, though. I think tannic is often painted in a bad light when describing whiskies. If it's in the red wine's tannic and a nice piece of steak is tannic. It's like if it's in the right proportion, it can be quite nice. If a whiskey has got a bit of spice and a bit of grip to it, not too much. Otherwise, it's
I think that's a really good conversation. Probably one for another day. But the whole thing about tannins and mouthfeel and grip, and in my opinion, they're three different circles on the Venn diagram, and yes, they do overlap. And trying to find that sweet spot between them is the challenge for all the distillers and producers.
And we're talking on cask end, aren't we?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's like that
if you've got tannins coming out in a new make spirit, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. But you and I have tasted some weird new makes as well over the years.
True.
Like I remember one I tasted a few years ago, which just tasted like straight lavender oil in a glass.
Yes.
And you go, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you let this happen? So that iconic photo that we've used in lots of Lao literature and outturns and stuff of Ewan nosing a bung hole is literally at Distillery 35, and we got away with not saying the name of this the whole time just then. And we've done pretty well.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we're both winning so far.
Okay. I'm going to make some really obvious references to the next two, though, as to where they come from. So
hang on. Sorry, we can't move on. Just put up that comment by Will. I agree with him. That's
where are we? Will. Yes. Couldn't have said it better than myself.
Yeah, great observation. And look, that's why you come to the society.
That's true. Yeah.
You know what? Even those young retail-friendly ones that you get at your local bottle shop, particularly the no age statement ones, and their classic range, which has just been rebadged, by the way, they're good whiskies.
Yeah, they are good whiskies. Yeah.
And look, certainly for $70-$80, you can't complain. But
and in my opinion, the packaging looks naff, and no one knows what it is, but they're great whiskies.
Yeah.
But yeah, great comment, Will. No, I love tannins. Yeah, no, everyone does. Everyone loves tanins to a certain extent. Some people can handle it more than others. But what's that Tim Duckett quote? It's like when it's like licking a fence post. You don't want it too tannic.
Yeah.
25-year-old port cask. I think Andrew, you and I drank some of that, didn't we? You had a bottle of that I shared.
Did indeed. I shared that with a few people. That was a great drop.
Yeah. I've still got a bottle of one which was called the Mountain Oak.
Oh yeah,
Murray somewhere, which came in a big silly box. I don't know where it is. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I think we do need to move on though. B5.8. Spill less of it this time though.
All right. Let me just relocate to Cascade Hollow. Oh, there I am.
Oh, there you are. I was going to do the thing where I say we can't possibly tell you what the name of the distillery is. I wouldn't ever tell you what the name of the distillery is or where it comes from that screenshot as well.
Now you can read the writing.
Okay, good. But now you're reversed.
Well, hang on. Oh yeah, I am too. Yeah. Now we featured not this cask, but this distillery on one of our live streams about 3 months ago. It was one that Adam and I did. I think you were absent that night.
Yep.
And went down the whole conversation about Tennessee whiskey and where does it fit under the bourbon umbrella and all those things. So we won't bore you with that tonight. We've already done that. But it's always interesting that Tennessee whiskey, the Tennessee people make that distinction that they're not a bourbon. So it's always fun to go down that path. Certainly when you look at the sales figures between Jack Daniels and Jim Beam, one of them makes a point that one's a bourbon and one's not.
But they both are.
Corbin said the three magic words. It's the Lincoln County process.
Yes, there it is. Thank you very much. Also, I'm just going to dig into this one comment real quick. Dave Cook, I'm going to unfortunately disagree with you on that. I'm one of the maybe in the minority on this, but I actually think the new packaging for Distillery 125 core range, I think it looks fantastic. But each to their own. Each to their own.
Well, I think everyone. Do you remember Ben Riach came out? Not Ben Riach. I'm sorry. Never mind. I'll come back to that.
I think the new packaging for, we can say it because we're not featuring it, but the packaging for Glenmorangie I think looks fantastic. I think it brings beginners into the category and gets people excited about it again. It looks colourful and bright, and you know how to say it because it's vertically stacked. Anyway,
what's the just I'm having a seniors moment. What's the one owned by Gordon MacPhail up in
Ben Romack.
Ben Romack, thank you. Yeah, do you remember they brought out their new livery? Years ago, big bold red letters, and everyone found that very jarring at the time, and now everyone's following suit.
I mean, it still looks terrible in my opinion, that one. But anyway, but it's an improvement on what it was. That was the old chicken scratching writing they called it. Yeah. Oh, Betty's into something that's not peated. That's delicious, she says. That's great to hear. I'm a huge fan of these B5s. I think they are absolute gems of our bourbons and American whiskeys that we get through. And there's a note in B5 that I get in most of the casks I try, which I call peanut oil.
Yep.
And it's some of them get this lovely sort of almost viscous peanut oil, like if you're cooking in a wok with a peanut, like making something in a wok, and it's like that peanut oil, that hot peanut oil note, which I love in food and I love in whiskey as well. I don't really like it if I'm tasting malt whiskey, but I think if I'm tasting American whiskey, corn whiskeys often get that peanut oil note, which I think is just delightful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Look, it's a name that you got to be careful saying it out loud these days. No one, you mention his name with trepidation, but look, back in 1998, Jim Murray wrote a book, The Ultimate Guide to Whiskey, and he covered all the whiskies of the world that were prevalent at that time. This is 1998, don't forget. American whiskey, Scotch, Japanese, and Irish. And he belted out so loudly the fact that this distillery, B5, was he felt was the best whiskey coming out of America at the time. And it is extraordinary.
Yeah, it's a big call, but I see where he's coming from. 63.5%. Feels like it's barely lost a notch off its fill strength there, maybe somewhere.
But it works though.
It works really well.
Yeah.
Boisterous and hugely satisfying bourbon. This is just like, for me, this is like, I know I say this about a lot of bourbons, but this would be a big tumbler dram. It's a nice big tumbler dram of a whiskey.
Can I commend you on your choice of order tonight? I'm winding the clock back a little bit, but 15, 16 years ago, when we would occasionally get a bourbon through the society and we'd put it on in a tasting, and much to the membership's horror at the time, I hasten to add, we would always put the bourbon first. We'd put the bourbon first at number one, then we'd move onto the Scotch. And it possibly would have been tempting to do that tonight, but I reckon where you've stuck this in the lineup at number 4 has just worked perfectly. And I don't know whether that's the beer coming into play here, but it is just singing. And I think we're getting all the wonderful notes we're getting out of it, ironically, having come from Scotch whiskey and a sherried whiskey at that. I'm just wondering whether if this had been first cab off the rank tonight, we would have gone, oh, that's a bit strange. But it just works where you've slotted it. So well,
I appreciate that. Thank you. It's kind of tricky, isn't it? Because if you do put it at the front, especially something that's 63.5%, and quite like it's like even on the front label it says concentrated fruits and spicy power. So go, okay, this is, you don't want to sort of anesthetize yourself before you hit marmalade overdrive or something.
Yeah,
and you'll taste marmalade and go, oh, is this what is this 20% ABV or something?
But I'm keen to know, is the pairing with the beer contributing to this as well? Is it a combination of beer that's allowing this Tennessee whiskey to come in at this point in the night and actually shine?
That really works with that banana stout, I'm going to be honest.
Does it?
Yeah, that's good because it's all like, it accentuates all the sort of charry banana notes in that spirit.
It's made my pale ale come off a little sour, actually.
Okay, yep.
Not necessarily in an unpleasant way, but we talked earlier, some of us said that one of the preceding whiskies brought out the hops in the beer. This has brought out a sour note.
In a good way, or like sort of like a sour beer, almost like it's a sour beer.
No. Oh gosh, not like a sour beer.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. Hello to my good friends at Wildflower, but no, thank you.
I do like what they do.
Do you?
Although they've had a bit of a rough run over the last couple of years. They had that lactic infection in their output. And they lost about 9 months worth of beer.
It's funny you say lactic infection, and
Yeah.
not everyone instantly thinks of beer when you say those two words together.
I should have said lactic infection. Oh, also they lost the beer, unrelated. There's two issues at play here. Drink less beer and see a doctor. That's fine.
Oh yeah. By the way, Dave, good to have you live in real time for this tasting rather than a few hours later.
A perfect Monday afternoon. You had a day off, so may as well enjoy it. And I say afternoon because what is it, like? Not even quite 5 p.m. in Perth. No, it's almost 6. So we're not daylight savings at the moment, are we? So there we go. I love this old school creaming soda. Red Frog's a little oily, as Matt says. Nutmeg muffins. That's good bourbon. That is good bourbon. Yeah. This one, the B5.9, the B5.8 that we had recently, just I think you don't want to blink and miss these kind of bourbons because they're just you don't see much out of I almost said it, out of B5, out of Cascade Hollow. 9 casks in nearly 40 years of the club is unusually low. So always good to see some great bourbons coming through.
And look, not that we'd ever necessarily push you down the commercial route, but if you do happen to see their 10-year-old at your local bottle shop, it's a bloody good drop.
Yeah, it's very good. Also, they do make as you saw in the next photo, they do make a bottled and bond, which is also very good.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't pop up very often though.
Is bottled in bond just a euphemism for no age statement?
No, it's the Bonded Whiskey Act. Minimum 4 years of age for bonded. Has to be bottled at 50% ABV and distilled by one distiller in one season. So it was designed to, I think, improve quality standards in whiskey a long time ago.
It's an old designation, isn't it? It's been around
very old, yeah. In fact, if you zoom in a bit on that label, it says aged 13 years. That one, so yeah, that one's a bit older than 4.
Wow.
Yeah, so they do. Bottled and bond is a nice starting point for some good bourbons.
That's something I've really enjoyed in my American whiskey journey over my time is just seeing the increasing age statements. I mean, 25 years ago, there were no age statements at all, and you knew that most stuff was 4, 5, 6 years old, and that was it, and everyone was happy with that. And I think they looked across the Atlantic and saw what the Scots were doing, and saw that if you put a few more years under its belt, you could. I mean, there was always Pappy, of course. Pappy was putting out old stuff, but then Wild Turkey came to the party with their expressions.
Russell's
and then there was always. Do you remember the Elijah Craig 12-year-old as well?
I do. Yeah.
So they're certainly realizing that as long as you control it well, because American whiskey does mature very quickly, and at 4 years old, it is ready. So to push something through to 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, you got to be very careful with it and not over mature it or over oak it. But they're getting better and better at doing that.
Yeah. And like you say, it's about control of maturation. And I think America's almost seen that, like, obviously a few decades before Australia has, because there are now Australian distillers who mature for long periods as well, who have gone, you can make 10, 12, 15-year-old whiskey here as well. It's not just, doesn't have to be 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah, you've got to control it, and it's climate driven, it's warehouse driven, and it's evaporation driven.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Corbin, I knew the 50% rule, but nothing else. Can I claim this cost as a self-education expense on my tax return now? Yes. I am not I do not provide tax advice, but you should. All advice is general in nature, and an accountant should be sought.
I worked for a company for 4 years a while ago, and we used to have a rule that if you learned something on the day, you could go home. So as soon as you learn something new, you'd be out the door.
Look at that, folks. It's 9:02 a.m. All right, that's good.
Yeah, sadly, I never learned anything new till about 6 o'clock that night. But anyway.
Well, sucks to be you. Oh, just go back and have a smell of that 35 if you've got any of it left.
Yeah, I do.
It's picked up a bit of dunnage floor funk now, I think. A little bit of rancio.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's slightly more it's gotten funkier in my glass.
Funkier is a word I'm not down with.
Mm.
People reach for the word funky when they're getting something that is arguably unpleasant. And you pause for long enough to prove my point.
No, hold on. Okay, question for you. Because it's Boilermaker night, I can ask this one. Are you a fan of sort of like funky beers, like really yeasty, funky beers? See, that's where you're wrong.
Well, folks, it's been wonderful drinking with you tonight. We'll see you next month.
Okay, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one. But that's yeah. Not with rum, AD. Okay, there we go. Not with rum. Great comment from Glenn Homan, who says, yet to get a 96 from SMWS, even when I was in Edinburgh a few weeks ago, they were completely out. And yet, there's a 96 in August outturn.
I was just about to say, yeah. But just be mindful, Glenn, that, being the society, we do like to do things differently. And, of course, 96 is renowned for its sherry casks. And most of the society ones we bottled have been from ex-bourbon casks because that's the point of the society. Let's do something different.
Exactly.
So, when you see your 96, it's proof of how wonderful their new make spirit is, that it works in a bourbon cask and doesn't need that big belter sherry, which, to be honest, we love out of 96. But it's an interesting route to go down to. And we all did exactly the same thing 20 years ago, almost to the year, in fact, with Macallan. Because prior to 2004, all Macallan commercial expressions were 100% sherry. There was no known bourbon stuff. And the society bottlings of Macallan at that time were bourbon casks. So it was completely different to the commercial expressions that we knew and loved. So, that's why we joined the society, to try something different.
Things that are so far removed from house style, but you'll just enjoy the ride and enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Some great comments coming through, though. As I only use funk when talking about rums or sour/wild/saison beers. True, Corbin, maybe true, but what about when you try something like a Society 112 or 135, where they're quite funky whiskies? I mean, especially 112. Those what is it, 2 and a bit distilled times tall. You know what? As soon as anyone tries to explain all the complexities of that distillery, that Highland distillery, that will be running around in circles. We've had a few of them on the streams before. And also use funk when it comes to Campbelltown whiskies. There you go. Yeah, and always used affectionately. That's it. Love a bit of funky Campbelltown whiskey. Who doesn't? All right, let's move on to our next whiskey.
Who picks up a whiskey and goes, I get Bruno Mars. Yeah.
Wait. This isn't the music and whiskey night. This is beer.
I've had 2 musical references tonight. Can I go home now?
I'm picking up real Bruno Mars vibe off this one, yeah. It's a real Silk Sonic vibe, Yeah, okay. Great comment as well from Whiskey's My Jam. Taz will learn lots when AD visits his tour of Speyside late August. The tour of Speyside bus is on its way to Tasmania, so keep your eye out on the website for that. And of course, get along. Andrew's going to Tassie. When was the last time you were there anyway? When was last year? When was your last Tassie?
I was last in Tassie 2016.
Wow. Okay. Definitely overdue.
I'm overdue.
There we go. So, and you got to go to the New Sydney. All right. I think is the event at the New Sydney? I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, I'm not sure either, actually, to be honest.
There we go. Okay. So, let's move on. Now, I'm going to be honest. I picked this one for the lineup based on the name alone. It's a beer night. It's a peat smoked porter kind of reference straight away. It's a smoky, delightfully peaty whiskey, but not your usual sort of peat, obviously being a mainland peat rather than a... there's the distillery. Distillery That's the distillery. I should just say that's distillery 16. It is actually quite stunning to look at. It's they like to lay claim to being one of the oldest distillery in Scotland and things like that, which is completely unverifiable. But it's a nice story.
Well, mind you say that they claim going all the way back to illicit distilling in 1717.
Mm-hmm.
But when they actually raised their head above the parapet and were less illicit about it, that's 1763 from memory, which would make them older than the other claimants to that throne, which is, Strathyla and Little Mill, but Little Mill's dead anyway, so they don't count anymore.
So if we're only counting continuously operating, but not including periods of closure sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no point Little Mill saying we're old because, sorry, guys, you died 20 years ago. So
True.
Yeah.
I
do love the fact you chose this on name alone. I don't know if you didn't come up for it this year, but in Sydney back in January, we had a Burns supper. And being a Burns supper, we had the haggis, of course. And one of the whiskies we had at that time was Fat Haggis. And, it was featured at that night purely because of the name. And my God, it worked a treat.
Did I miss a Burns supper?
You probably had one down in Melbourne
Well, I don't know. I can't remember if I was. I know I've been to a few of your Burn suppers, and I'm sure I was there. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
No, not this year, but that's right.
Yeah,
just means you got to come next year.
Great distillery 16. Great restaurant. Great distillery. Great restaurant at Distillery 16, says Will Pitchforth. Good to see you again, Will. Yes, AD's Hobart event at New Sydney, second largest partner bar SMWS range in Australia. Indeed. Trailing only just behind Whiskey and Ailment. Now I am happy, says Betty. Yes, we knew someone would get you in, Betty, of course. I think these are just underrated whiskies. Full maturation, recharred hoggy. So refill hogshead that's been recharred. 63%, and just powerful.
So this distillery goes by the name that we all saw on a picture just a moment ago. But when they do their peated run, it's known as Ruad Moor. And everyone pronounces that a little differently, but I'm running with Ruad Moor tonight.
Ruad Moor sounds good. That sounds good.
Sounds all right? Okay.
I was saying Ruach or Ruad. Yeah, same old.
Yeah, Ruad. Yeah. But most of the Ruad Moors I've had have been in their teens, 10, 11, 12 years old. So to have it as an 8-year-old, when the peat is still actually vibrant and lively, this is a cracking dram.
They relaunched their core range a couple of years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago, into these, since their new ownership of Lalique. I
was about to say they got, when was that, 2018 they got bought out?
About then, yeah. About then, I think, yeah. So we used to be part of the, Edrington stable. Yeah. And most of it for many years, I think even still now, goes into grouse. But they have a new core range as well. So it's what have you got behind you, Andrew? What photo have we got behind?
That is the still.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
Well, sorry, the still. One of them.
Yeah. It's a single wash and spirit in one combo.
That's the giant wash still.
Yep.
You can tell it's the wash still because there's a peephole up the neck there.
Yep.
I did the dodgiest thing in this distillery. I'm kind of ashamed at it, but at the time I went there in 2011, the distillery was part of Edrington, as you mentioned, and prior to that, it was part of Highland Distillers, and Highland Park up in Orkney was also part of Highland Distillers. And I rocked up there that day, and just by sheer coincidence, had a Highland Park T-shirt on.
Oh yeah,
or a nice little polo shirt. And I rocked up, went to the thing, and I was about to hand over my £10 to do the tour. And they said, so you got a Highland Park shirt on? And I said, yeah, well, I'm part of the group. I'm a unofficial brand ambassador for the Edrington group back in Australia. And they went, oh, well, come on in. So I walked straight through and avoided the £10 tour.
Well, I from what I can tell, Andrew, that the roof and walls are still standing without your £10. So I think we're okay. I think we're
that's
okay.
Right. I spent the £10 on a decent Lefroy ladder that night.
That's not from their stable. Now they're upset again. It's some great comments coming in. David Gilk says a little funkier. Back to the funk note. Yeah. Chip shop vinegar on the nose, and the palate delivers barbecue.
Sorry, round of applause. Vinegar.
Yeah, vinegar chips, like salt and vinegar chips straight away.
Hugely. Wow.
Some burnt caramel slice for dessert. Very interesting, Graham.
What's that Chinese barbecue pork with the special char siu?
Char siu pork, yeah. Solid value at 169. Yeah, I mean they're just bruises. Let's be honest. If this was an 8-year-old at 63% from distillery 53, 33, 29, 129, that it would be probably the very least. It would start with a 2, if not 3, at the front of that price point. The fact that we can get it to 169 for members, I think, is just brilliance.
Corbyn's asked a question: how long do they do peated runs for? My intel on this is pretty old now. Back in 2011, when I was there, it was 1 month of the year, but I suspect that's probably changed since then.
Yeah, I don't know. It may have been the same still, but yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. Whew.
Wow,
that's lovely.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? I mean, we went through a phase, and thankfully we're out of that phase, but we went through a period 7 or 8 years ago when it was just getting increasingly hard to get Islay peated whiskies for a whole stack of reasons. They had their dry spells, their dry summers on Islay. The distilleries weren't releasing their casks to the independent bottlers like they used to. And we, the society, as well as all of the other independent bottlers, really had to turn our attention to the mainland. And there was a spell there, and longer-term members might remember this in sort of 2014, 2015, 2016. We started to see more and more of the peated mainland distilleries arrive in our outturns just to try and keep up the flavour profiles, that peated profile. And this distillery has thankfully always delivered in that regard. But what I've loved about what they do here, it's not a substitute. It's not a poor man's Islay. It's not oh gosh, we do this once a month and we're not very proud of it. It was just an experiment. Here you go. It's this is something we do all the time. It's regularly part of our production program now. Ben Romack do something similar as well, as do Ardmore with their heavily peated ones. There are some really wonderful heavily peated whiskies being made on the mainland, and I think you really do yourself a disservice if you like smoky whiskey and you put the blinkers on and go, well, I've got to turn to Islay. There really is some amazing stuff on the mainland.
If you have your blinkers on, you miss out on these 16s, you miss out on 66s, you miss out on so many amazing peated mainland whiskies that just have this often, instead of that boggy sort of damp, mossy kind of peat that we get out of Islay, you get this lovely sort of like white cigar smoke or like sugar and bonfire kind of thing going on, which is just delightful in a whiskey.
I liked your use of the word sugar there. Yeah, they do offer that sweetness, don't they?
They're often a bit sweeter. It's like sort of sweet peat.
You don't necessarily get the big iodine hit.
You do sometimes. I mean, this one's got salt and vinegar chips all through it. Like it's maritimey. It's a bit vinegary. But it doesn't have that sort of damp, mossy, boggy, wet cardboard going on either.
So now that we've come to the
formal conclusion,
only peated whiskey of the night, I'd love to see people's comments about how this went with the beer. Once you introduced a peated whiskey to the equation, did your beer go to another level? Did the beer change the whiskey? Throw your comments online about that, please, as I enjoy my pale ale.
Still can't get over how much that the 35's changed. It's lovely. And
I've come to the conclusion. Hang on, I need to flip my camera again if I'm going to hold something up to the camera.
There you go. Yep.
Oh, I've flipped. So, ladies and gents, I'm on this one. Focus. I've got this fancy camera that's meant to autofocus, but it's not doing that right now.
If you put it in front of your face, I think it will. No, not next to your face.
In any event, this beer with this dram from this distillery is working a treat. That is absolutely stunning. For those of you who are playing along at home with the Lord Nelson, I'd love to know your thoughts. This is just working so well.
I'm so glad you finished that with the word Nelson. For those of you who are playing along at home with the Lord, thank you so much for joining us. And Christ is King. Drink beer, be happy.
Look, if you're drinking whiskey and telling the world about it, you're always doing the Lord's work, in my opinion.
Touche. Lots of similarity
man, that really works. In fact, I made a mistake earlier. I only poured out
Poured
that
half?
much, but
Yeah.
I'm going back to top up because
I might do the same. I'm just going to top my glass up. That's great.
this is working really well.
Lots of similarity here to the Lomond, to the Le Mans, to the Loch Lomond's. Sweet, but also vinegary peat, where the Isla are more iodine and sea salt, and the fours are all sweet heather. You know what? I love our fours at the moment. There's one coming up in August outturn called Hillwalker's Delight, I think it's called. Just phenomenal whiskey.
100%. Good night, Betty. I can see you're leaving us. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Betty. 16 took too much from my beer. There you go. This is kind of the fun of it, though, isn't it, Corbin? And these kind of discussions about, as we said, sometimes the whiskey will take too much from the beer, or sometimes the beer has taken too much from the whiskey, and it's or sometimes the whiskey has not improved the beer at all, or vice versa. Back to the vaults.
Back to the vaults, yeah. Actually, I love that.
It is gorgeous, isn't it?
That's almost worth the conversation too. Just go back one picture if you're able to.
Yeah, of course.
But these wonderful distilleries where the condensers are outside. It's hot inside. We're trying to cool the vapor down, so let's stick it out in the cold.
Yeah. I'll just expand that a bit. There we go.
You see all these distilleries where the condensers just hanging out the back of the building.
Thank you. This interactive environment has persuaded me to get next month's chocolate virtual tasting. Yeah, you've jumped the gun there, Simply OP, but you are right. Do not miss out on this on next month's virtual with our wild scientist of chocolate, Krishna Rajalingam, is back from Basic Chocolates, and he's paired up five drams with 5 chocolates, and everyone gets 30 mils of each whiskey, like you've done tonight, and 2 of each bonbon. So it really is a shareable pack. Unless you don't feel like sharing, then don't have it all yourself. See what I care.
That is an extraordinary. Look, I'm preaching to the choir here, but for Simply OP, that is one of the highlights of the year. We look forward to that every year. And of course, if you don't get along to the virtual one, get along to the one in your local city, because a few of the cities are actually doing exactly that.
Yeah, they are indeed. Krishna is a flavor god. Yep, you will not miss out. Don't miss out on that one. It's I just remember I think the first one we did, or the second one it must have been the first one we did, which was like 2020. With Krishna, and it was right in the depths of lockdown. And Andrew, you and I were on that stream together and tasted that one of his. I think it must have been the second pairing he did. And I think you basically had to go off camera because you were just like, nope, that's insane. How did he do that? What's going on here? And it was one of those moments like, no, that's impossible to pair like that. He's got a knack for it. He's a wild animal, that guy. He's great.
But it's not just that match. It's the journey of the palate experience. You put the palate. For those of you who've been and seen him in the flesh at a live event, you'll have experienced this amazing moment where he says, "Pop it in your mouth," and he times you, and he'll walk. It's almost like that scene from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory where whatever the girl in the red dress talks about the thing changing over time. And that's exactly what his chocolates do, and he'll walk you through that 5, 6, 7 seconds. And at the 4-second mark, he'll say, now you're tasting this. And at 10 seconds, now you're tasting that. And it does change. And then, you bring that whiskey into the equation, and it's just the most mind-boggling experience.
Yeah, he truly is amazing at doing it. And on that note of next month's virtual as well, just on his creations, some of the build-up that went into it in previous years and this year, but he's gotten much better at it as well over the years, is that he used to call me at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday and be like, all right, Matt, I've got this different matcha powder that's coming out of Japan instead of out of Europe, and it's this much extra per kilo, and it's going to create this extra flavor, but I have to get particularly that flavor from this Japanese grocer. Is that okay? I'm like, yeah, just do it. Go for it. Go nuts. I don't know what you're doing. It's like, you work your magic.
Have we set the date for that virtual yet?
Yeah, it's all in outturn, which is coming up. I think the actual virtual itself. Oh, now you're testing me. The actual.
That's right. I don't think I've seen the calendar appointment yet, which you were going to send to me. Hint, hint, hint.
Hint, hint, hint. Yes, 20th. 20th of August is the virtual. Yes, I will send you that calendar invite. There we go. And now it is in your inbox. Andrew, I am sorry. There we go. Okay.
Beautiful.
So, there we go. All right. Well, folks, that's all for now. I will we'll call it for the night. As always, we like to show a sneak peek of next month's cover, but it's pretty predictable because it's a chocolate month with Christmas virtual. But August outturn is on its way. Chocolate and whiskey doesn't get much better than that sometimes, and that's what August is all about. Celebrating on Friday the 2nd and 16th of August. There's a big release happening on the 16th, which we're very pumped to be involved with. So that's all in outturn. I won't give you any more leaks than that at the moment. Andrew, thank you so much for tonight.
Thank you, Matt. Been an absolute pleasure as always.
As always. Folks, thank you so much. Please take advantage tonight only of that free ship code that's still on the screen at the moment. If you go to the smws.com.au/shop, just use that and it'll take $15 off your order at the end, which is essentially refunding your shipping cost. Cool. That's it.
Till next time, folks.